to The Late Show. My first guest tonight has worked tirelessly throughout the pandemic to deliver facts to the American people as CNN's chief medical correspondent. The last time he was here in the theater, there was no audience to give him a proper welcome. Let's make up for that right now. Please welcome back to The Late Show, Dr. Sanjay Gupta. Now, you and I have spoken a few times over the COVID lockdown, over the Zoom interviews, which were great. We had a good time talking to you. We got information out there. But the thing that is coming back to me now, the emotional moment that I'm reliving was you were my last guest in this theater in 2020. On March 12th of 2020, we had no audience. There were some staff members. I got a photo right here. There you go. We had a few staff members out in the audience, and John Baptiste was at the piano, right, John?
Yep.
You were at the piano, and that was it. And we leaned on you to tell us what you thought we were about to go into. How do you think we did for the last 15 months? Looking back on that night and the next 15 months, what's your takeaway from what we've experienced?
It's so hard to sort of piece this all together, Stephen. I mean, I have to say, first of all, it is really wonderful to be here. I mean, it feels...
It's great to have an audience back, and...
I mean, I think you forget what you miss. I mean, just being bathed in a sea of humanity, I love this. It's really wonderful. And I think there were times over this past year when I didn't know if it was going to happen again. I knew that it would happen again, but I just didn't know when. The future just sort of looked blank as I looked out there. It wasn't that it was dark or light, it was just, there was nothing there for a period of time. How did we do? Well, Stephen, I think I remember you asking me, is it time to panic? And I said, I don't know that panic has a real purpose. We need to plan, we need to do things. And as you know, Stephen, 600,000 people have died. So I am still, my heart still is so tight. I'm so happy to be here. I feel like I'm gonna mark moments of this pandemic by this show, by sitting with you, as you showed in that picture, and being here tonight. But we didn't do very well. I mean, we could have done so much better, and I think that makes it really heartbreaking. People are worried about variants still, meaning people who know what they're talking about. Specifically, the rising, something called the Delta variant. Yeah. What is that, and how concerned should I be? Well, so Delta variant is a variant that has been spreading in India. This is the one that has caused a lot of the increase in cases now in the UK. The UK variant is no longer the dominant variant in the UK. It's the Delta variant because it is more transmissible. Will it be dominant here? We're about 10% right now. Of new cases, about 10% have the Delta variant. And if you follow it, it sort of doubles every couple of weeks. So yes, it will become dominant here just by math because it sort of crowds out the other less transmissible variant. Does the vaccine stop the Delta variant? Yes, the vaccine does work well against it. It has a little bit of a reduced effect against it, but it still works well against the Delta variant. So if you've got the vaccine, you shouldn't worry about death or hospitalization from the Delta variant? Yes, that's the thing. If you are vaccinated, I think you got to feel pretty good that you're not going to get very sick, you're not likely to become infected or spread it. But if you're not, I got to say that you thought you sort of got away with it. I didn't get infected. This thing is in the rearview mirror. This thing's 60% more transmissible, roughly. Wow. Yeah, so it's not just a little bit. Things that you kind of got away with before, if you were unvaccinated, you probably are going to have a harder time getting away with those Even things. A better reason to go ahead and get the shot now. Everything comes back down to that. That's another thing we didn't know back in March of last year, that we would have a vaccine. So fast. So fast and so effective, 90% plus effective. I do not think we can celebrate the achievement of that science enough. It'll fundamentally change science. It'll change the pace of medical innovation. Those mRNA vaccines, maybe therapies for cancers in the future. I've never gotten a clearer signal on my 5G phone before. It's amazing the coverage I get now. All the extra benefits, yes. Now, I got to ask you something that's on a lot of people's minds, is that you say that science, one of the things that science does is that it approaches information with humility and it changes as new information comes in. What about the origins of the coronavirus? Because
many people, including a dear friend of mine,
Yes, I heard.
believe that it's got to be the Wuhan coronavirus, novel coronavirus lab. Why else would they name it that if they didn't make it? Now you're laughing, but I'm just curious what you think of that rationale, and is there new information? I know that there's this idea, this theory has been updrafted recently, and is there any evidence? Because I don't want to be right, I just want to know what the truth is. What do we know so far?
Yeah.
I do want to be right, though.
I think that this really has to be investigated. I mean, I think the lab leak theory was dismissed by a lot of people and used for political sort of gamemanship without any evidence. There was no evidence that it leaked from a lab. There's no evidence that it didn't leak from a lab. It's sort of the nature of science again.
So why does it come back around again? But people like Anthony Fauci and Francis Collins and NIH are saying, no, it should definitely be investigated.
Yeah, I think there's a few reasons. I did this interview with Robert Redfield, who was head of the CDC at the time, and he came out and said, this was in February of this year, that he thinks that that's likely how this escaped. And he's someone who had access to raw intelligence and raw data. And when you start to look at the pieces, like, were there people who got sick in that Institute of Virology? They got sick in October, November timeframe. That's interesting, because we thought this didn't really start to hit the scene until end of December. So they got sick. Was that sickness caused by COVID? Was it caused by something else? We come to find out, as I heard from other people, that lots of personal protective equipment was being purchased in China from other countries, including the United States, at least 30 days before the rest of the world was given notice. Did they know something? Was something known? We don't have evidence to say that proves to a lab leak theory, but I think
because that points to deception.
It points to deception.
But it doesn't point to
But
engineering.
why deception? No, absolutely. So this idea that it was biomanufactured as a weapon somehow versus an accidental lab leak versus a natural jump from animals to humans. Those are really the three things on the table. The bioweapon part of it, I think most people don't really think that that's what happened. But the idea that this virus could have been studied in the lab, could have been increasingly exposed to human cells, and accidentally leaked out of the lab is a theory that I think is very worthy of investigation. There's something else. Typically, when a virus jumps from animals to humans, it kind of sputters along. It takes a while for it to sort of gain steam. As was explained to me, this thing came out 90 miles an hour and all of a sudden just started infecting wildly. Why? Well, if it had been studied in a lab and exposed to human cells, it was becoming more and more efficient. It was becoming smarter. At the time that it leaked, it was a huge problem.
Now, you've been informing the nation from the world about facts versus fiction about COVID over the past year, but now you have a new podcast. It's called Chasing Life. What is that?
Chasing Life is basically about the reemergence of society. What have we learned this past year? What have we learned about ourselves? What have we learned about human connection? And also, I kept thinking about the country in some ways, Stephen, as my patient throughout this pandemic. I really did. I felt a real sort of, I felt an empathy. I don't know, there was a connection that I've never felt before. And the patient is still recovering. They're not totally healthy, they're still recovering. But part of that recovery is the physical recovery, and part of it's the mental recovery as well.
Last question, most important one. There's the physical, and then there's the mental recovery, and then there's the romantic recovery. When you were here 15 months ago, I asked you if it was time to stop dating, and you said yes. Dr. Sanjay Gupta.
That was science.
I understand. Can we date again? Are you endorsing hot vax summer? No pressure.
Yes, I am.
That's science.
That's science.
Sanjay, thanks for being here. His podcast is called Chasing Life. Dr. Sanjay Gupta, everybody. We'll be right back.